Ladies and gentlemen, what's good? We're back with another Call of Duty Mobile video. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day today and hope you've had a great start to your new year. We got a lot planned ahead of us this year and I'm super excited for it. So if you guys are going to be joining us on that journey, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. As you guys probably saw from the title, today's video could be one of my most anticipated ones yet. I would say overall, Call of Duty Mobile is in a really good spot in multiplayer, especially as far as competitive things goes. There's only two things really holding you back: the K9 unit and persistence. Now, some of you may not have an issue with either of those things, and if that's the case, I'm just going to assume that you use them on a regular basis. But if you're like me and you enjoy working for your kills, this video is for you. We're going to be giving you guys a few tips and tricks on how to most effectively combat persistence players and give you some ways to be able to beat them without having to use the perk itself. Before we hop into the action, I want to answer a question I know I'm going to get in the comments a lot, which is, Bobby, why is persistence an issue? It's been in the game for a long time and nobody's had an issue with it before. Number one, that's not true. People have had an issue with it for a long time, and anybody that watched 2020 champs knows that it's just not fun to watch in general because it takes away a lot of the skill in the game. Number two, it completely defeats the purpose of a score streak and pretty regularly results in very high requirement streaks going to players that are very far in the negative. This penalizes higher skill players that know how to play their life and overall reduces the skill level of the player base by creating an environment wherein players don't really need to know how to play their life. Feel free to debate in the comment, but we're going to go ahead and hop into our tips and tricks. The first and I would say most important thing to know whenever it comes to countering persistence players is which perks are going to benefit you the most. The first must-have perk when it comes to countering persistence players is going to be Flak Jacket. The majority of persistence streaks that are going to really impact the game are going to have some sort of explosive damage. You've got your cluster strikes, your pred missiles, your napalms, your VTOLs, the list goes on and on. Flak Jacket does a great job of countering that, but at the same time it counters against a lot of other mechanics such as operator skills and thermites and Molotovs as well. If you look at just about anybody in legendary rank, they're using either a Molotov or a thermite as their lethal, which can get pretty annoying, especially in objective based game modes. Regardless of what type of meta abuser they are, unless you're trying to counter the K9, this is going to be your best option. Your next absolute must have is going to be cold-blooded. Now obviously we got a lot of different types of score streaks that you can unlock with persistence. A pretty significant amount of them are going to be impacted by cold-blooded. So your sentry guns, your stealth choppers, your swarms, your hunter killers, all of those are going to be completely reduced to nothing whenever you're running cold-blooded, and especially with how many people are running swarms along with persistence these days, cold-blooded is an absolute must-have. The last must-have perk is going to be hardline. Now the main reason for this is because a lot of what we're doing to counter those persistence players is trying to build up score streaks by playing more passive, and in order to do that more effectively, you're going to need hardline to do it. That extra 25% on the scores is going to allow you to stack big time score streaks early in the game, which can help you to counter those persistence players in the late game. That's going to lead us perfectly into what score streaks you want to use in order to counter those persistence players and the score streaks that they're using. This has a little bit more variability in the strategy that you can go with, but for the most part, I would recommend probably the same 3 to 5 different score streaks. The first one's obviously going to be the UAV. Very easy to achieve, and if you're playing the objective, typically you only need to get 3 kills in order to unlock a UAV whenever you're running hardline. That's going to set you up really well to start playing for more of those streaks that allow you to unlock the later score streaks. If you're not as confident in your ability to win some of those gunfights, then I would recommend running Shock RC because it is a lower cost score streak that does give you a lot more options to start stacking points early. Another good alternative that you could potentially go with is the SAM turret. The thing about the SAM turret that makes it not the best option, I would say, is that it doesn't really combat all score streaks, and especially the fact that a lot of the score streaks you're going to see used aren't going to be countered by it. The only main one is really going to be the swarm. That makes it a little bit iffy, but if for some reason they're running VTOL, it can counter that as well. The next one I would argue is a must-have is the orbital laser. Now this might catch some of you off guard, but I'm going to tell you why. One of the most common score streaks you're going to see people with persistence running is going to be the cluster strike. The beauty of the orbital laser is not only is it able to get a bunch of kills and clear out a very large area such as a hard point, but if you call it in on top of a cluster strike whenever that's called in, it immediately starts stacking points. So for those of you who watch my COD Mobile Mobile short on the world record highest score streak combo, in that we used the orbital laser on top of the cluster strike, and I think got a score of something around 7,000 points, which is absolutely absurd. On top of that, the orbital laser is one of the best value score streaks in the game anyway, so if you're gonna run anything, I would say this is gonna be your next must-have. Following that, I'd say you have two more realistic options. My personal preference is to go for the advanced UAV, because once you have that up, you should be able to win pretty much all of your gunfights short of you really just running out of ammo. Advanced UAV shows every enemy's location on the map and also the direction that they're facing, so most gunfights should be very, very easy to win, which means you can start cycling your score streaks as well. The one alternative I say you could potentially run is the EMP systems. Obviously, calling this in is going to erase all score streaks in the game at the time, but it's only one use, and I feel like you get more cycle usage and more flow of the game using the first three score streaks that I recommended in the UAV, the orbital, and the advanced. Another important factor after this is going to be our operator skill. Now, because of the strategy that we're using, which is primarily focused on building score streaks ourselves to counter the other team's score streaks, kinetic armor is going to be a really good way to do that because it charges up very quickly relative to other operator skills, and because of that, early in the game there can be a lot of situations where you're either low on ammo or low on health, and it can allow you to get away from some sticky situations and continue to play for your streaks. If you do decide that you want to, instead of maybe playing things a little bit more safe, try to build streaks really fast, the Annihilator can be a great option if you have good aim. It's probably the fastest that you'll be able to get 6 kills consecutively out of any operator, but it's also not the easiest to use. So like I said, if you have great aim, the Annihilator is a great option and can instantly build you a ton of streaks, but it's also a little bit more risky. Moving on, obviously your gun choice is going to be super important as well. Now, there's a couple different options that I would say are really ideal whenever it comes to playing for streaks, and most of these are going to be more long range based. So our first option that's definitely the easiest to use is going to be the M13. This build itself is fantastic at range and also mobile enough that you don't really have to worry a ton about close range gunfights if your aim's on point. Even with the stopping power nerf, the Type 25 is still a great option at range as well. Maybe not quite as consistent in the mid to long ranges as the M13, but this build is going to be very easy to use and a little bit more viable than the M13 in those close range gunfights. Last alternative that I'll recommend is the SKS. Obviously, a lot of you probably saw Ferg put this as his #1 gun in Call of Duty Mobile right now. It does require a high amount of accuracy and is definitely more difficult to use than the Type 25 or the M13. But with that being said, it's no question the most consistent long-range gun in the game alongside the SVD. So if you master either one of those guns, you're going to be good to go. The last thing we want to talk about when it comes to countering persistence players is your ability to play your life, which is not something that people talk about a whole lot, especially in the COD Mobile casual scene. When I talk about playing your life, I'm talking about primarily what angles you want to take gunfights at, when to know when to sit back and not challenge something, and also how to get away from a gunfight. A lot of this does come from game sense, but a big reason that we have the UAV and the advanced UAV on here is to give you a better idea of where your opponents are on the map and which of the angles you're going to be able to play where you'll have an advantage. Obviously, you never want to stay in one particular position for too long, but there's lots of power positions in different maps that will give you a big opportunity to win a gunfight easily, whether that be through a head glitch or through having high ground advantage. On firing range, top 10 and top wood are two fantastic places to play at the beginning of the game. On standoff, you have the two high ground places on the opposite sides of the B flag that can be played in both hardpoint and domination, and there's countless power positions on different maps, but for the most part, the main purpose of these positions is to make sure your entire body is not exposed and you're at some type of an angle where your enemy is not going to expect you to be, or if you are where they expect you, it's not going to be easy for them to kill you. These spots are going to be the best way for you to build up those score streaks, and once you start feeling a little more confident when you get some of those UAVs in the sky, maybe your kinetic armor in play, then you can start taking a couple more risks, and hopefully the more that you practice it, the more it'll pay off. But that's going to be it for our tips and tricks on how to beat persistence players in Call of Duty Mobile. Hope this was helpful for you guys. If it was, please do me a huge favor, make sure to drop a like down below, make sure to subscribe to the squad if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys in the next one.